Hello, my name is Kathleen McCall. I'm the Advocacy Director for AARP here in Washington State. Thank you for joining us today and participating in this teletown hall. With the primary election just about a week away, August 4th, we want to make sure you know how to cast your ballot in this important primary election. And I want to stress again that the word is how. We are not here today to tell you who to vote for. We're here to make sure you have the information you need to make a better decision and to help you cast your ballot and give you the options for casting your ballot. You can find more information on where and when and how to vote by going to www.votewa.gov. We'll share that URL later on in the presentation. As a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, AARP is in your corner fighting issues that matter to you, including protecting hard-earned Social Security and finding solutions to help family caregivers save time and money. We have some important races this year. At the federal level, all members of Congress, except our 2 state senators, are up for re-election. All members of the state House of Representatives and half of our state senators in our state's legislature are up for election. Equally as important, voters will be deciding on judges and many city and county races. Your vote matters in this primary on August 4th. So please get those ballots in. We'll talk more about that. We know that voters 50 plus decide elections and that they are the majority voters in every election. The primary is your opportunity to determine the top 2 candidates who go forward into the general election. This is important, and this is your opportunity to make your voice heard. So again, we are here today to make sure you have the information you need to be able to cast your ballot. If you participated in one of our teletown halls, you know this is like a radio talk show, and you, the listener, has an opportunity to ask questions by pressing *3 on your telephone keypad. That's *3 on your telephone keypad. You'll be connected to an AARP staff person who will take your name and your question and place you in the queue to ask your question live of our very, very special guest we have today. Also, keep a pen and paper handy as we'll be sharing some helpful information, phone numbers, and websites that you may want to jot down. So joining us today, it's my great pleasure to welcome Steve Hobbs. He's the Washington Secretary of State. We will discuss how the voting process works, the different ways you can return your ballot, deadlines for the primary election, voter misinformation, and answer your questions to make sure you have the information you need to exercise your right to vote. We see tons of questions that are coming in right now. So again, if you want to ask your question of Secretary Hobbs, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. Welcome, Secretary Hobbs.
Thank you.
And so again, for close to 40 years, AARP has been working hard during elections to provide information to our members and the public on when and where and how to vote, and the candidates' positions on our policy priorities. AARP does not endorse candidates or elected officials. We do not give money to political action committees, candidates, or elected officials, and we do not tell you who to vote for. AARP does raise the visibility on issues that matter to people 50 plus, works across political lines, informs candidates of issues that matter most to the 50 plus population, and provides factual information on mail-in ballots and additional information on when, where, and how to vote. Before we begin, Secretary Hobbs, I would like to get a picture of who we have here joining us today. So I'd like to ask our callers before we get into the discussion to take a quick poll. So in order for you to take a poll today, you need to use your telephone keypad. So please listen to all 3 answer options before responding. So the question is, how do you plan to vote in the upcoming election? Voting by mail, taking advantage of an official ballot drop box, or do you plan to drop your ballot off at a county election office or voting center? Press 1 on your telephone keypad if you plan to vote by mail. Press 2 on your telephone keypad if you plan to take advantage of a drop box location, and press 3 on your telephone keypad if you plan to drop your ballot off at a county election office or voting center. Again, please take part in this poll. Press 1 on your telephone keypad if you plan to vote by mail. Press 2 on your telephone keypad if you plan to take advantage of a drop box location. And press 3 on your telephone keypad if you plan to drop your ballot off at a county election office or voting center. We'll share those poll results shortly, but now I'd like to give Secretary Hobbs an opportunity to say a few words. Steve, this must be a very, very critical time for you and your office.
Yes, it is. We are really busy, not only trying to assist our 39 counties in running the election, but also we are busy fending off legal challenges to vote by mail from our federal government. And on top of that, we have to protect our elections from the cyber actors such as Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, cyber criminals, and trying to counter mis and disinformation through our Mark the Ballot campaign that we do. We let people know, and also scanning social media if in case there is a nation-state actor that's trying to sow mis and disinformation, which we have caught in the past.
Thank you, Secretary Hobbs. As I mentioned earlier, this is an interactive call. So if you'd like to ask a question about voting in the upcoming election at any time during this call, just press *3 on your telephone keypad to be connected with an AARP staff member who will note your name and question and place you in the queue. So the sooner you press *3, you can ask your question of our special guest today. So I'd like to take a quick look at the poll results and see how we did. So it looks like we have a majority of people will be voting using the official ballot box. And then another portion of you will also be using the voting by mail. And a small number of folks will also be voting at their local county election office or voting center. So some interesting results to that poll. Again, a majority of folks looks like they're voting by mail or they're voting via the drop boxes. So that's great information, really what we'd like to see. So thank you very much. So let's go ahead and get into our discussion right now. And I wanted to reach out and ask Secretary Hobbs some questions that we've been talking about here in Washington State in our office. So could you, Secretary Hobbs, could you please share some insights into the measures your office has in place to ensure the integrity and security of our elections?
Yeah, there's multiple and multi-layered security measures that we take with our elections. If we look to just auditing procedures, we audit before and after the election. We do tests of our tabulation machines throughout Washington State. We have teams that go out and do that. We do full-blown, like really deep audits of counties once every 5 years. We're also tied to the Electronic Registration Information Center, which is known as ERIC, which is data sharing with other states. States that are not part of ERIC, then we go one-on-one with those states to exchange data. This is why we know when people vote in the same election twice, or when people move to another state. We have actually caught people, and people have been prosecuted. We check every signature that comes across. So every signature is checked, and we have caught people that have tried to forge signatures on ballots. Now, most of the time that is some mom or dad or grandparent or signing for their kid that failed to sign their ballot. But yeah, don't do that. Don't do that at all. We also have cybersecurity in place. We try to coordinate with the federal government as much as we can and with other states to protect our basically the websites is what I'm more worried about, because tabulation machines are not connected to the internet. But we do what we can to protect ourselves from that. And, of course, always being on the lookout for mis and disinformation. This stuff I'm telling you is something that we are trying to do a better job of letting the public know, because we have done a poor job of that until recently. We've been doing a really good job of telling you when to vote, but not telling you about the process of election. And, in fact, you know, as Secretary of State, I didn't know that these procedures were in place before I became Secretary of State.
That's really, I'm just so glad you're taking such decisive action, Secretary Hobbs, and your staff are doing, you know, a great job in terms of awareness. We have a really good question that just came in from Peggy in Seattle. Her son is concerned that non-citizens can register to vote. She's going to ask her question now. Peggy?
Okay, my son and I have not an argument, but I said, I think there's some misinformation going on. Apparently, he was under the impression if somebody's getting a driver's license, that at that time they can opt in to vote. And I said, there is got to be more to it than that, because I don't think that's accurate. But he is concerned, and so am I. But I have never felt that there's been any, much fraud involved in our elections. But what can I tell him? Or is that a case where you can opt in, like a donor can opt in on their driver's license to get registered to vote? I just didn't think that was possible. That's my question. I just want to know how to answer him.
Yeah, thank you, Peggy, for that. So we have different ways to register to vote here in the state of Washington. And first of all, let me just state to everybody out there, if a non-citizen votes, that is a Class C felony, that person can be fined, that can be imprisoned or deported. Now, in terms of registering to vote, as I said, there's multiple ways to register to vote. So you can put in the last four of your Social Security number. If you are an enhanced driver's license holder, you are automatically registered because your citizenship is already predetermined, and because that's the only way you can get an enhanced driver's license. Now, for a driver's license, we have the motor voter law here in the state of Washington and across the United States. And so when someone goes up and get their driver's license, they will be asked by the person at the counter, are you a U.S. citizen? And that person has to attest to whether yes or no, if they're a citizen or not. Again, if they lie, then that's against the law. The other thing that happens too is, do non-citizens accidentally come on the voter rolls? It does happen, because let's say what happens, the clerk wasn't paying attention or clicked the wrong button. Now, what happens next is there's another check, right? So there's a check at the counter and there's another check. When the ballot arrives at the person's house, that little signature you're doing, not only do we verify who you are from that signature, but also you are attesting whether or not you are a citizen of the United States and you're over the age of 18. Now, do non-citizens vote in elections? That has happened. It is extremely rare. This is how rare it is. In the 10 years that we did data, 90 million people voted in the state of Washington. We have found 5 cases of fraud. In the United States of America, right, all the states and territories, in a 10-year period, hundreds of millions of people voted, and there were 85 cases. And this is from the Heritage Foundation. It's a conservative think tank. So it is extremely rare that it ever happens. And in a lot of cases, when it does happen, they will be caught and probably prosecuted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy, for your question. Really appreciate it. And if you would like to ask Secretary of State Steve Hobbs, who we have now on an AARP teletown hall talking about the primary election and how to get your ballots in and get your vote counted. If you would like to ask a question, press *3 on your telephone keypad. That's *3 on your telephone keypad, and you can ask a question live on the AARP teletown hall related to our voter engagement. So we're getting some more questions that are coming in, but one I'd like to ask you, Secretary Hobbs, is something that I have heard quite a bit from our members, and that question is, what should voters know about the postmark changes by USPS, by the United States Postal Service? There's been a lot of discussion about the role of the United States Postal Service when it comes to mail-in ballots.
Yeah, thank you for that. So about a year ago, the U.S. Postal Service made changes on when the postmark is put on your mail. Now, in the past, you could take your mail, put it in your mailbox, and let's say you did it, you did it before the mail carrier showed up on a Tuesday of Election Day. The mail carrier would pick it up, take it to their local office, and then from there they would probably be all, well, they will be all postmarked on that particular date, so that then you had met the requirement. That has changed now. So now the postmark is made at the central processing facility. So it could take anywhere from the next day to several days before the postmark is put on there. And in the worst case scenarios, maybe a week. So they did this. This is what they said. They said that they did it because it was cost-saving measures that they were doing. That is why we are asking our citizens, our voters, to mail early, and if they are a week out from the election, you need to put it in a drop box, because that you'll know for sure. Then you'll be able to have your vote counted if you put it in a drop box. We also encourage voters out there to track your ballot. You can go on votewa.gov and you can opt into our text messaging program so that you know when your ballot's coming, if your ballot is counted, so that you have a little more control as to what's going on with your ballot. And so, again, I stress this again, a week out from the election, which is now, you should just put your ballot in the drop box. Oh, hey, one other thing, too, because I know retirees like my mom are like snowbirds. So when they're not in the state, my ask of you is because you're not going to have a drop box to really go to if you live, let's say, in Arizona or Florida or wherever you want to go to when you're snowbirding. Go to the post office, your local post office, and you can ask them at the counter to stamp your mail. They can put a postmark on your mail at your local post office, but you have to ask them to do that.
I did not know that. That is really also great information, because I think that, a lot of people don't know about some of the changes, with the United States Postal Service and with mail-in ballots. I mean, the ballot box seems like the best option then, and making sure you get your ballots in and or early, and if you're going to mail them early, but then the option of also having a postmark put on your ballot at the post office if you ask is also a fabulous piece of information.
Yes, and fun fact, and it was reinforced the poll you did, most people actually use the drop boxes, especially during even years.
Exactly. So, And again, welcome to the AARP Teletown Hall. If you're just joining us, we are talking with Secretary of State Steve Hobbs, and we're talking about how and when and where to vote this primary election. So primaries in the state are really important. You as voters get to decide the top 2 candidates that go on to the general election. And a lot of people, don't vote in the primaries because they don't think they matter. So it's really important for you to get in your ballots. And so again, we're telling you and giving you all sorts of tips today on how to mail in your ballot. If you'd like to ask a question of Secretary of State Steve Hobbs, you can press *3 on your telephone keypad. That's *3. And an AARP staff person will take your name and your question, and you can ask it live. But I think that there's more information and more questions that we have here that we can start asking you, Secretary of Hobbs. There is, a lot of misinformation out there. I feel like I'm pretty educated and smart when it comes to voting. But what is some of the misinformation that voters should be aware of, and how might this impact voters participating in our call today? And what should they do to really, check and verify misinformation?
Yeah, I'll give you a few of the big ones that I hear a lot out there. One is, hey, dead people are voting. So remember, I mentioned earlier about the database sharing. So in was it the last year, 2024, the primary, there was a very tight actually 2 years ago, there was a lands commissioner race, and Dave Upsgrove won that primary by like 51 votes. It was a really tight race. There had to be a statewide hand recount. Now, in that particular election, there was like 80-something individuals where the ballots, the people that mailed the ballots were dead. And now you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, dead people determine the election. Well, that's not the case. So in this state, when you are mailing your ballot, let's say you filled out your ballot, you signed it, and you put it in the drop box, it counts. So as long as you're alive and you fill out your ballot, it counts. We do get sometimes ballots that come in that say, oh, hey, this person passed away. But then when you check, because we know when people die because we get the death certificate notices, or the data anyway. Then we go, okay, well, this person filled out their ballots, their signatures matched on what we have on file, the ballot counts. We have had cases where a ballot comes in, they passed away after we sent out the ballot, and the signatures don't match, in which case we start asking questions. And 9 times out of 10, most of the time, what happens is a loved one had voted, a widow or widower had voted for their loved one that passed away. And we have had, this is, again, this is also rare, but they are brought into the county prosecutor's office. They're investigated. We typically, when I say we, the counties, typically do not prosecute someone when they have voted out of grief, and they usually will not do it again. They feel really bad about it. No elections have been, affected by this. But again, it's a super rare moment. But this is just a story. What I'm telling you is that we know we find this happening, and so that's one of the myths that we get. I've addressed the non-citizens voting. There's that myth as well. I have heard the myth of cyber actors trying to change the election. Again, tabulation machines are not connected to the internet, so they can't do that. And every signature is checked. Now, to diffuse these or mitigate these myths, what I tell people is simply go ask your local county auditor or reach out to us, and we will tell you. And if you don't trust me or you don't trust the word of your county auditor, you can actually go in and see the process for yourself. every citizen has a right to go into your local county elections office and actually watch the elections. You can actually see the ballots coming in. You can see people checking signatures. And that should give you the peace of mind that your elections here in the state of Washington are secure, transparent, and accessible.
I think that that's really, really interesting. And again, when we were talking to your staff in preparation for this call, to know that anyone, they can go through training and they can go to their county election office and actually be there and watch the election, watch the ballots come in. And again, if individuals are interested in doing that, how do they go about doing that? They go to their county election office or contact their local county auditor?
Yeah, it's both. It's either you can just go there or give a call ahead of time. Obviously, some of you all live in counties that are really the population is very small, so they may not have a big staff at the county auditor's office, and so calling ahead might be nice for you to do that, though you can just show up if you want to. In King County, it is a little different situation because in King County, the county auditor does not run the elections. They have an elections director, and so if you call King County Elections, you can just Google that and contact them. You should be able to go there and check out the process. They've got a big facility, so you could probably just show up.
I think that's fascinating. At some point, I would love to do that myself. So again, if you just joined us, you're on the AARP Voter Engagement Teletown Hall with Secretary of State Steve Hobbs. You can ask your question live by pressing *3 on your telephone keypad. One of our wonderful AARP staff members, my colleagues, will take your question and your name, and you can ask your question live. We just had another question that came in. Somebody is asking, how do you verify the signatures?
Yeah, so when the ballot comes in, the signatures are scanned, and there's individuals who are trained by Washington State Patrol, and they look at your signature, and then they look at the signature that's on file that we have. And most of those signatures come from your driver's license. If they do not match, then your ballot is flagged, not counted. It won't be counted at that particular point, and a notice will be sent out to the voter, letting them know that they need to come in or they need to fill out a cure form. That's what we call it, a cure form, to cure your ballot. And that does happen sometimes, especially when our signatures do change with age. They change with an injury, but they must match what is on file. And so we have situations where somebody might sign for all their I had mentioned this before, where maybe a parent or patriarch or matriarch of the family signs the ballots because someone forgot to sign it. That happened to me, where my kids did not sign their ballots, and now I didn't sign for them. I drove to their college and made them sign, but sometimes a parent doesn't know or a grandparent doesn't know, and they sign. Well, what you don't know behind the scenes, and you'll see this if you actually go to the election center, is sometimes they'll bring up all the signatures within a household, and they'll find out real quick. It's like, oh wow, look at this! All the signatures are similar. They obviously the first names are different, but the last names are same, and they'll go, oh hey, this looks like one person signed it, and then they'll just flag all the ballots from that particular household, and that has happened before in the past.
That's very interesting. Again, if you are just joining us for the AARP Teletown Hall, please press *3 to ask your question live with Secretary of State Steve Hobbs. We have a question from Spokane from Aruna Butta. Aruna, would you like to ask your question? Aruna, are you there? Hi, Aruna, would you like to ask your question? Okay. Oh, she's in the process of being screened. So
Kathleen,
we'll go. Oh, here it comes.
Kathleen.
Here she comes.
Hello.
Aruna, would you like to share your question?
I would like to. What Secretary Hobbs was saying about the signature verification really works, because in my case, I had my wrist surgery on the right hand. I'm a right-handed person, and I couldn't use my hand to sign. It was election time, and I signed it with my left hand. And I got a call from the county auditor's office about the signature issue. So they really do the signature verification, and it is important to remember how we have signed it on our voter registration form. That's all I wanted to share. Thank you.
Hey, I just want to follow up too, because that's a great point. You know, when we did a study, we found out that younger people tend to get their ballots rejected because they're not doing cursive anymore. And I know this has come up in a couple of meetings I went to, discussions about elections and how the young people are getting rejected their ballots. So, you know, you're members of AARP, so you might have a child or a grandkid that their signatures are getting rejected because they're not signing in cursive anymore. You need to remind them, hey, you don't have to mimic a signature. My youngest did not learn cursive in high school or in elementary school, and my oldest did. And my youngest will mimic adults' scribbles, right? It just puts a scribble down. Well, you know, that's going to get rejected. So tell them to just simply print your name. You don't have to do this cursive. You can even print your name. That is a signature, and that will be matched, and that will be looked at on the signatures on file. They just have to match. Fun story, in Clark County, the election workers always talk about this guy named Guitar Amp Guy. And the reason why they call him Guitar Amp Guy is because his signature is a drawing of a guitar connected to an amp. Now, you're probably thinking, well, that's just ridiculous. Well, but it isn't, because that's how he signs his driver's licenses and other official documents. So as long as it matches, it counts. If it doesn't match, then you'll be notified. And this is why I'm going to put a plug in once again to our text messaging program that you can go to votewild.gov and opt in, because if your signature does not match, you'll be given a text message. You'll have a text message sent out to you so you know that doesn't match, so you can fix it right away.
That's very interesting. Guitar Amp Man. But that's his valid signature, so that makes sense and it matches. So I think that's also just fascinating. I'm learning so much just being on this call with you, Secretary of Hobbs. So
yeah.
I'd like to ask another question related to, we're going to jump over to ballot boxes. How can people find their ballot boxes if you don't know where they're at?
Yeah, that one you go to your county auditor, go to their website. A lot of times they'll have it right there. That's the quickest way, the most accurate way is going directly to the source, going to your county.
Perfect. Yeah, for example, I just moved to a new community and I immediately went online and I found, my 2 ballot boxes in the area. So, I was used to them for having lived in my other location for 25 years, knew right where they were at the library and the city hall and, new location, but all the information is available. Is there a phone number that people can call if they don't have the ability to go online and use a computer?
The problem is that each county has a different number, so I couldn't I would have to bring up all the list of county numbers, and I don't have that with me right now.
So it'd basically be pointing to the local county election office and call them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Another question related to drop boxes. When do they open for the primaries?
Yeah, they're open right now. Yeah, you can take your ballot right now and put it in the drop box.
Okay, great. And also, another question that we have that we've been talking about here in our office, if voters need help with a replacement ballot or updating their registration, when do voting centers open? I assume that they're open now and close, but are there regular hours, or again, is that up by depending on the county? It sounds like it's dependent on the county.
Yeah, it's depending on the county, and you can go in any time. So even if it's not an election season, you moved, let's say, you can go to your local county auditor and have it updated, or you can just go online too at votewa.gov. But go to your county auditor is a good thing to do.
Great. Also had a question about drop boxes. A lot of questions about drop boxes coming in. Are they emptied every day?
The way they empty them is they have two people go out and empty the drop boxes. I'm going to have someone check, but I believe it has to be done every day. I know it has to be done on the day of on election night.
Great. Thank you. Can you, as we're kind of starting to move towards a little bit of a wrap up, I think we have a couple more questions coming in, if you don't mind taking some more questions. But maybe we can run through some of the key dates for the primary election, and then also for the general election. So just as a reminder, so everybody get out your pen and piece of paper and jot these down and mark them on your calendars. So again, the primary election is coming up August 4th, and then the general election, when's voter registration? When will ballots go out for the general?
So ballots go out typically 18 days before the election, but sometimes they will go out earlier. We're encouraging counties to put them out earlier due to the USPS situation. Also, if you are an overseas voter or you marked yourselves as overseas, it's 45 days before the election. The election is November 3rd. That is the general election. And usually the drop boxes are available as soon as the ballots go out.
Okay, great. We've also had a couple more questions come in. Again, this issue around illegal immigrants voting in Washington State. I just don't think we can, talk enough about this, and that a lot of misinformation that's going on. Could you please repeat what you said earlier? Because we've had new callers join the call, and these questions are still popping up.
Yeah, just a reminder to people that it does happen where a non-citizen can get accidentally registered to vote. That happens when they go get their driver's license and the clerk was not paying attention, because the clerk has to ask them, are you a U.S. citizen? Are you over the age of 18? Are you a resident of the state of Washington? If the answer is yes, then they are registered to vote. If the answer is no, they're not. However, if the clerk does something wrong, clicks the wrong box, or the person is confused and says, yes, I am, then that is when sometimes they are registered to vote. However, there is also a signature that must be done, and the person is signing, saying that they are a citizen under perjury, which is a Class C felony, and that's the first filter. The second filter is when they receive their ballot, because when they receive their ballot, as you all know, you have to sign. Well, you're not only signing so that we can identify who you are and that you're saying that you are the person that is filling out this ballot, but you're also signing that you're a U.S. citizen over the age of 18. Because if you're not, you can get a Class B felony or deported or imprisoned. And so that's a pretty high penalty for someone who is a non-citizen who's attempting to be a citizen in the state of Washington. And it's so rare for these to happen that the amount of fraud is minuscule. So, for example, in the state of Washington, over a 10-year period, 90 million people voting, 5 instances of fraud. In the United States of America, in the 10-year period, remember, hundreds of millions of people are voting, 85 instances. And in that case, that number was reported by the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative think tank. So even some of the right wing will tell you, based upon their data, that it is insignificant and tiny. But it does happen, and when it does happen, people are prosecuted.
Thank you. Thank you again for that reminder. That's a big price to pay if you are a non-citizen trying to achieve citizenship, to be fraudulent on your ballot and lose that opportunity. I just don't think people would want to take that risk. So thank you for sharing how rare that is to happen. We have another caller from Jackie from Vancouver. She has a question for you. Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you. A couple of years ago, some of the drop boxes in my area, in fact, the one that's closest to me, was sabotaged with fire. Is there any steps that are being taken to protect the integrity of the boxes? Or is that a local issue?
No. No, thank you for that question. So some of the boxes, well, it's a little nuanced because some areas, if the highly dense population areas, the boxes will be a lot more reinforced, and they will have extinguisher systems. Now, here's a well, it's not really a fun fact because that box got firebombed. There was an extinguisher system in it. There was also an extinguisher system in the box that got firebombed across the river in Oregon. Remember, it's not just our state. This is Clark County.
Right.
It was in Oregon, too. And in Oregon, very few of the ballots got burned up because that particular extinguisher system had a chemical that takes oxygen out of the air. The extinguisher system on the Washington side did not have that. And the chemical used to burn the ballot, so the explosive chemical used was thermite. And so some people probably don't know this, but it was in the news. It's just a reminder, it was thermite that was used. And so what this person did, pretty sophisticated, is they slapped the thermite onto the box. They didn't put it in the slot. They slapped it on the side of the box, timed the burn long enough to burn through the metal, and it would drop into the box. And because it was thermite, you can't put water on it to put it out. You need a chemical that takes the oxygen out. And that's why it was so effective at burning it. So there are drop boxes now that have a better chemical in it that would take care of that. And we have procedures in place, of course, if ballots are burned up like we did last time, to notify the public to quickly print out their ballot, sign it, or go to their election center so that they can have their vote counted. And here's the thing to remember is let's say, and this, sometimes it happens, sometimes we forget. You filled out your ballot, you sent it into the county, and for whatever reason you forgot. Oh, did I do it? But I can't remember. So you do a second one. Again, this is very rare. Well, guess what happens? Is your second one doesn't even get counted. It just gets kicked out of the system. So the first ballot is the one that is counted, which is another reason this whole myth about people voting multiple times is simply not true. And if you do it enough times, you're going to have a phone call or you're going to have a meeting with your local county prosecutor. And looks like ballot box, by the way, I got note here from my elections expert staff person here. Ballot boxes are emptied daily, and in most counties, sometimes multiple times a day.
That's great to hear. Thanks, Jackie. We have Aruna from Spokane back again. She had another question she wanted to ask. Aruna?
Yes. My question is, if a other person, is moved, they move from their own home to adult family home or assisted living, but they received the ballot at the old address. Should they call and request a new ballot for the new location, or just, fill out the old address ballot and call it good?
Yeah, that's so this is a little tricky. Now, you should get a new ballot at your new location, is what you should do. So you should call the county auditor. However, let's say, and this has happened in some cases of seniors, it's like, well, they were living with their kids, and because of health reasons, they went to an adult family home, but the adult family home was going to be a temporary situation. Then they could use their kids' address because that is their primary residence, because they're going to go back there. So, but for the most, if you're going to an adult family home on more of a permanent basis, then you should contact your county auditor or update your registration on votewild.gov.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Aruna, for your question. So again, we're going to, I don't see any additional questions coming into the queue, so I think we'll go ahead and move to wrap this up. I want to say thank you to all of those of you on the call, and I also want to say thank you to Secretary Steve Hobbs for joining us for this important discussion on the 2026 primary election. Again, the primary election is oftentimes overlooked, but it's important because we are a top 2 candidate state, and that means that you, as the voter, get to determine who goes on to the general election. And it's important for you to get out the vote, turn in those ballots. So, Steve, do you have any final comments before we close?
Yeah. If you have any doubts about your election, or you heard something that doesn't that sounds like the elections are not secure or transparent, don't just keep it to yourself. Don't get angry. Don't post on social media. What I would ask you to do is go contact your local county auditor or elections office, contact the Secretary of State's office, and get the real information. That's the best way of doing it. That's how we counter these myths and disinformation. And also, if you're a week out from the election, put your ballot in a drop box. Don't bother mailing it. And for some of you who are snowbirds out there, where you don't have access to a drop box and the election's coming up, go to your local post office and have them stamp the postmark on your mail. So that is my recommendation to you. And thank you for having a voice and making a decision on who is going to represent you in government.
Again, thank you, Secretary Hobbs, and thank you to your amazing staff. We've had an opportunity, AARP staff have been working with your staff quite a bit, and we want to continue to be supportive of efforts that ensure free and fair and transparent elections. What I learned today is that we can all go and witness or watch the ballots being counted. So contact your local county auditor, go to your local county election office or call them first. I think that is fascinating because it really shows that we are a democracy and we pride ourselves on free, fair, and transparent elections. So again, thank you to all of you on the line who joined us today. Please mail in your ballots for the Tuesday, August 4th primary election. I apologize if we were not able to answer your question during the call. Again, we encourage you to reach out directly to the Secretary of State's office or, again, your county election office if you have any questions about how to cast your ballot, either by mail, at a drop box, or in person. And there's information, again, at SOS, the Secretary of State, sos.wa.gov/elections. That's sos.wa.gov/elections. We hope this call was helpful to everyone. We appreciate everyone's time and participation. Thank you and have a good day. This concludes the call.